Hello everyone, and welcome to 12.5, which is the Law of Cosines. This is again for non-right triangles. Now at some point you're probably going to ask yourself, how do I know whether or not I'm supposed to use the Law of Sines or the Law of Cosines for a particular problem? For the Law of Sines, you'll either be given two angles and a side. It'll either be the side that's across one of the angles or a different one. For these, you find your third angle first, and then you can take it from there. You might also be given one angle, its corresponding side, and another one of the sides. For the law of cosines, it'll be somewhat obvious once you write down your list of answers because you're going to have one occurrence of each letter. You're either going to be given all the sides, or two of the sides and the unrelated angle. So let's take a look at what the law of cosines looks like. So, kind of looks like the Pythagorean theorem at first, and then we have a minus 2b cosine of a, so whatever my angle is, that's the side that's on my left-hand side of my equal sign. You only have to do the law of cosines once, because once you do it once, you have enough information to use the law of sines. And law of sines is a little bit easier and much less bulky, so it'll be a lot easier to work with. So let's take a look. So I've got my diagram, and I see one occurrence of each letter. I've got my angle, I've got two sides, so the side that I'm going to be looking for is that C. I'm actually going to use that very last formula. So it's always going to be the side that's related to the angle squared equals my other two sides squared individually minus 2 times each of those sides times the cosine of the angle that we have. For this version, all I have to do is type it into my calculator and just make sure I take the square root. So I make sure my calculator is in degrees, and I can type straight in. C squared, I just got to make sure I take the square root. And I get a C value of about 10.4. From here, I can use angle C and side C with my law of sines to figure out one of my other angles, and then I'll just subtract from 180 to figure out my next one. So let's solve for angle B. So I know the sine of B over 10 equals sine of 73 over 10.4. I'll cross multiply. Divide by 10.4. And I am going to have to take the inverse sign once I get that answer. So I've got, actually I'm going to do them separately so I don't have to worry about the parentheses. So I've got 10 times the sine of 73. Divide that by 10.4. Should look kind of funny, but once I do the inverse sine, get the angle by itself, you get about 67 degrees. And to find my last angle, just take 180 minus 73 minus 67 and get 40 degrees. And I have all my answers. And it's also reasonable because crossing the biggest angle is the biggest side, crossing the smallest angle is the smallest side. So at least I know my answers are definitely in the right ballpark. And one where you're given all the sides. Now, you have to be careful. Because inverse sine won't give you an obtuse angle, and we don't know if this is an obtuse triangle or an acute triangle, you have to solve for the largest angle first. So, biggest angle is across from the biggest side. So we're going to solve for angle C first. So that means I'm going to have 12 squared equals 9 squared plus 7 squared minus 2 times 9 times 7 times the cosine of C. Following my order of operations, I'm going to move these first. For the sake of illustration, I'm going to do each part separately just so you can kind of see where things are coming from. So 12 squared, I know, is 144. And then 2 times 9 times 7. Notice how this is a product. These have to stay together. So I'm going to take 144 minus 81 minus 49. I get 14. So 14 equals negative 126 cosine of C. Divide both sides by negative 126. And then take the inverse cosine. And I get an angle of about 96 degrees. So C is 96 degrees. Now I can use the law of sines because I have enough information. So let's solve for maybe angle B first. So I've got sine of B over 7 equals sine of 96 over 12. Cross multiply. So I've got 7 times the sine of 96. I'm going to divide that answer by 12. And take my inverse sine. So angle B is about 35 degrees. And then for angle A, I just take 180 minus that 35 minus 96, and I get 49 degrees. Got all my answers? In this case, I was solving for all of the angles. You just have to be really careful that you keep this stuff together. Otherwise, that's about it. I'll see you in class.